Hi. A number of my friends in the Exiles have asked how to go about making points for their costume, for their armour. I did a search on YouTube and couldn't find any videos that I felt covered the subject properly, so I thought I'd have a go at making one. I'll have to apologise now, this is my first attempt at making a video, so it's probably not going to be very good. Now, on to the subject at hand, we're going to look at making points and arming points. The techniques used are basically the same for both. The big difference is these are made of tougher materials, in this case it's a hemp thread, and are waxed to make them strong. These are made from a softer material, in this case wool, for the elasticity in it. I'll show you arming points as they're the more complex, and I'll tell you where to make substitutions. First and foremost, this is the hemp I'm going to use. It's a 0.5mm thick hemp, 3-ply hemp thread. I just got it off Amazon, I think from a company called Hemp. You can use linen as well. Any strong fibre will do. Hemp is best, linen is good. For clothing points, I usually use Appleton's embroidery wool or Appleton's crewel wool. The difference between the two is crewel wool is 2-ply, embroidery wool is 4-ply. So obviously you double up if you're using the crewel wool. Right, the first thing to do is get the lengths of thread. This is just a board I've made up so that I get a consistent distance. You can use the lengths of a chair, 2 doors if they're suitably placed, anything to keep you working in a steady, in a fixed place. So I'm just going to tie on one end of this thread, which appears to be rather tricky from this angle. There we go. And now I'm going to use, this is 15 strands, 15 ply, so 15 strands of hemp, 3-ply hemp admittedly in there, so I'm going to measure out 15 lengths now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 15. Now that's 15 lengths there and 15 or 15 lengths back. There's nothing to stop you making a much longer thread and then cutting it. We're just cutting this off now. Much longer thread and then cutting it into the lengths you need. I'm not doing that just because I don't want to be here plaiting for too long. There we go. We'll leave that for a moment now. Right, trim that off as well. Having got them cut off like this, away the bit you don't want, I'm going to gather them up into bundles of 5 and make sure that the ends line up nicely. 4, 5. Having done that, I'll just wrap it around my finger, take a block of beeswax, it's freely available from all sorts of places, or cheaply available I should say from all sorts of places, and we're going to run the hemp through the beeswax, and we're going to do this repeatedly to build up some nice thickness of wax onto the hemp. You can see they're starting to stick together and stiffen up as we're doing this. If you decide when you finish your point that you hadn't put enough beeswax on, there's nothing to stop you building up more layers afterwards. Just when you're done, wrap it in foil and stick it on a radiator overnight or over the day or something, so the beeswax melts and it will absorb into the hemp. Now that's quite nicely waxed. What we're going to do now is we're just going to put a twist into it to keep them together. So right hand forwards, left hand forwards away from you, left hand back toward you, and we'll just twist it up nice and tight. I did consider trying to put this into the jaws of a drill. I don't think it's a great idea, but you might manage it with a hand drill. I think an electric drill could end in tears, so let's not try that. Once I've got this one done, I'll need to make 3 more just the same, and then we'll be able to start looking at plaiting them together. Right, I've now finished making my twists. We've got 3 here about the same length. Each one contains 5 strands of this cord all waxed together. What we're going to have to do now is plait them up. So we'll bring them together, line them up at the end, and just tie a knot. Doesn't really matter what kind of knot you use. I'm just making a very, very simple one here. Doesn't need to be anything more than that. All we're trying to do is connect them together. We've got very, very high friction here because the wax is almost binding, almost gluing the strands together anyway. So that knot is not going to come undone anytime soon, and we'll soon reinforce it with something better. So our next job, we separate our 3 strands so you can see what we're doing. The way I always think of this is we have positions 1, 2 and 3, and position 1 moves to position 2, always over the top, and position 3 moves to new position 2, and we keep repeating this. My wife tells me she was taught that left to middle, right to middle. Doesn't matter how you remember it, they're achieving the same things. As you can see, we're getting that nice plait effect. This is the same method you use to plait hair. The only difference here, the odd thing that I'm doing, is I've not secured it to anything. Normally when you're plaiting, you would fasten one end to a fixed point, and that helps you keep the tension on. The downside with that is you are then tied to a fixed object. By doing it like this, I can move around if I need to, which is useful. However, it makes keeping the tension correct a bit more difficult. And I'm pretty sure you will soon see slight variations in tension appearing, giving a slight kinks to the plait. When we'll address that at the end, there's one, we'll address that at the end by just putting some pressure on the whole thing, drawing the kinks out. Just be sure you do that whilst the wax is still fairly warm and soft, because if that has dried, you're going to have a hard time of it. No, even that seems to have straightened itself out. I had another thing to tell you then, it's escaped me. Don't you hate it when that happens? Oh, length. You can do just about any length of this that you like. I've opted for about 12 inches. mostly because that will give me a single point and I want to get this done fairly quickly. Normally, if I was manufacturing points for myself, I would use a 1 to 2 meter length, and I would then cut that up into 8 to 12 inch sections, and I'd get 5, I think, something points out of that. 6 even.
That's what a degree in maths gets you.
That's what a degree in maths gets me, yep. Never trust a mathematician, most of them can only count in Greek letters. That will, yeah, you can make it any length you like. The only consideration there is the longer it is, the more time you're going to spend doing it, and you really don't want to stop halfway through, and the more difficult it gets to control these loose ends. At a foot's length, this is really easy to control. Oh, I said a foot or 12 inches and 8 inches. A foot or 12 inches is 30 centimetres, 8 inches is 20 centimetres, for those who don't do imperial. Yeah, if you're working with 2 metre lengths, controlling these can start getting a bit tricky, and you get them knotting up a lot more. So do be aware of that when you don't go and try and do sort of 3 or 4 metres worth of the plaiting all in one go, because you'll end up with just a knot behind you, and it's no fun trying to unpick that, especially when it's all waxed and sticking to itself. As I said, if we start getting any problems, I'll just ease it out when I'm done. You can see that just evens everything out a bit. This is easiest to do on the clothing points, because obviously you've not waxed the wool. Do not wax your clothing points. It makes them, 1, stronger than you want, and 2, gets wax all over your clothing. And you want the elasticity in that. The arming points you want to be more solid, more structured items, which is why you're using a much stronger, stiffer thread, and why you wax them together. But these will last you well, I can assure you of that. Right, well, I shall finish this off and then tie a knot at the bottom, so we've got it secured both ends and it won't come undone. And next I shall show you how to do a 5-strand plait. When I'm showing you that, I will connect myself to something, show you how to get that tension nice and even if you don't need to move around. This is just a bizarre conceit that I've picked up over the years. It's not the normal way to do it.